It's almost here. Hey everyone, Travis here, and the Apple Vision Pro pre-order was yesterday, and since then I've been gathering my thoughts on how I feel about the product about 2 weeks before launch. First things first, I did go through the pre-order at 5 a.m., which was honestly pretty seamless, except for having to rescan my face because I was half asleep, but we did go ahead and pre-order the base model, which is a 256 gig version of the Apple Vision Pro. I was partially debating on upgrading to the 512, which is an additional $200, but I figured depending on what it's going to be actually used for would really determine on using that extra storage, and I'm not really sure what it's gonna actually be used for just yet. And to be honest, I don't even know what the app ecosystem is gonna look like in the next 6 to 12 months, or what you'd even be storing locally other than movies and spatial videos. But in general, I did want to dip my toes into the Apple Vision Pro, so we went for the 256 gig model. February 2nd, which is launch day, is coming up really fast, and we are going to make a ton of videos on the Vision Pro, so make sure to subscribe. Of course, we've known its price point since the unveiling at the $34.99 price point with the 256 gigs of storage and the M2 chip, but we do know more information now. Storage increases are a $200 gap. So when you go from 256 to 512, that's $200. And then when you go from 512 to 1 terabyte, that's an additional $200. All the variants of Apple Vision Pro are an M2 chip paired with the new R1 chip, and they all have 16 gigs of RAM. AppleCare is $499 for this unit, and I would say because this is something that you wear and might get passed around, I would say that that's probably a smart move because AppleCare does cover physical damage. Of course, this launch was thought out quite well by Apple, and there are quite a few accessories to talk about. We've known about the Zeiss glass inserts for prescriptions, but additionally, there are a few other things that were unveiled yesterday morning. First things first is an additional battery, which is $200, and we do know that those batteries last around 2 hours. So having a spare to continue watching your content like on a long flight might be worth it. Additionally, there is a travel case that Apple has, so you can put all your stuff in one case that's nice and sealed up. This is much nicer than, let's say, the travel case for the AirPods Max. And let's hope that we get a similar travel case for the new AirPods Max that hopefully will come out soon. And there are even things like a belt clip for the battery, so you can have that attached right to the hip so the battery is not dangling down to the floor. I would say overall the ecosystem itself has seemed to be thought out quite well in terms of all the accessories on how it fits. Of course, when you do the pre-order, you have to scan your face with Face ID twice to make sure you get the proper size, and you have to do that when pre-ordering. So you have to use an iPhone or an iPad to be able to do that. But as far as picking the size and all the different accessories, it's pretty well thought out. So the price point can get up there quite fast. And if you chose the highest storage option, which in this case is 1 terabyte, you add on AppleCare, you get yourself a case and an extra battery, you're getting up there to the high 4,000s. And when you throw in tax, you're over 5,000. A few things to note here. It is a first generation Apple product. And second, it has Pro in the name. I'm sure in the next few years, as the Apple Vision Pro catches on, we will get an Apple Vision Air and a standard Apple Vision headset that will have different appeal for different users and bring that price point down, so the standard level user that doesn't want to drop more than $3,000 on this headset will be able to afford one. And I would say, going based on history, most Apple products start to really hit their stride once they're in their 4th generation. iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch, to name a few, were pretty much just like that. When we got to the 4th generation of iPad, the processor and the display was getting really good. Same thing with iPhone 4, that brought some really notable features, and Apple Watch, same thing with the Series 4. So we're basically 2 weeks out from launch, and I wanted to discuss my thoughts and where we are thus far. First things first is the Vision OS, as well as the App Store. Of course, there's a base set of apps that are installed on the Vision Pro when you first take it out of the box, similar to an iPhone, iPad, or a Mac. Things like Notes, Safari, Mail, Messages, Music, all the things that you've come to know for an Apple device in 2024, those are all pre-installed. Now, the App Store and third-party app support is a whole different beast, but as of right now, the Apple Vision Pro App Store is live. The only thing I will say right now is there's some heat going around on which apps are supported via an actual native Apple Vision Pro Vision OS app version, an iPad version, or no version at all. Some notable apps that aren't getting support day one are things like Spotify, Netflix, and YouTube, which you would think would be a given. YouTube came out and publicly said that they are offering a great version of YouTube through Safari, which is basically the web version. Now, there are quite a few apps that are natively supported on day one, and here's a few. Things like TikTok, Disney Plus, Max, Discovery Plus, Amazon Prime Video, Paramount Plus, and the list goes on. And it does seem like a lot of the apps out of the gate are gonna be entertainment and movie focused. Although I will say, because this is a first-gen product and app developers will need time to take advantage of the unit itself and get it out to customers to experience it, it will take a little bit of time to get some of those third-party apps in that you might already expect, or ones that you don't even expect at all. Now, where are my thoughts on this thing? Honestly, I'll be straight up, I'm afraid that I'm gonna like it. Now, I do feel like I will like it, however, I have some reservations on it being a VR AR headset and being immersed in a whole different world, taken away from reality, but we'll see how that goes. The last high-profile Apple product that released, of course, was the Apple Watch in 2015, and prior to that, I never even wore a watch. And at first I was hesitant to get one, but I wanted to jump in and see what it's all about, and I've pretty much been wearing it every day ever since. So I don't want to go into this with a closed mind. I definitely want to be open, but I have some reservations. Based on early previews of folks that have had hands-on personal time with the device, there's two things that stood out to me. All of them said that the displays were amazing, and I would assume nothing less because most Apple products have an amazing display, and the second was the way it felt. Interacting with this device is unlike any other Apple product where you're actually using your hands and eyes in tandem without having to touch anything to interact with it, which from what I've seen works like magic, in the words of Steve. Obviously, because this thing is strapped to your face and to the back of your head, there is some concerns about weight. Marquez in particular harped on the fact that it was very heavy. I'm not so much concerned to the weight as I am with eye fatigue, as your eyes are literally millimeters away from the displays. And I don't know what that's gonna look like 20 years from now with long-term usage of using this thing day in and day out. We'll have to just see. But I will say this kind of brings me back to the thought of being a kid playing PlayStation way too close to the CRT, and let's hope it's not that. So my only fear is that it's actually going to be really good, and the future for AR VR experiences is here now. It's kind of weird to say this, but I feel like it's earlier than I thought it would be. It's 2024. Now that sounds futuristic within itself, but I will say it's earlier than I would have expected us to start the Ready Player One world. Now, I don't want to overthink this and get into the thoughts of what a dystopian world of Apple Vision Pros would look like, and us living on a persona that's away from reality and not living in reality, but it's a thought that comes up. And honestly, my hope for this device is that it's utilized for its best possible use cases for its own experiences. Most notably watching 3D movies with actual resolution and depth, and great sound with AirPods Pro, so you'd have spatial audio and spatial video at the same time. Or my hopes that ESPN is gonna really have some crazy breakthrough recordings of 8K 3D live sports, and you'll be able to sit at a Dodgers game watching Ohtani play. That'd be pretty sick. Yeah, you'd basically be able to buy a couple Vision Pros instead of how expensive those tickets are. I'm honestly pretty interested in the feature that takes over the world and you can kind of put yourself in front of a beach or in front of a mountain set. I don't know the exact name for it, but that would be really cool to be able to experience the OS with a totally different surrounding around you. So wrapping this all up, I honestly feel like my personal take on this is anticipation of a new Apple product, but some nerves at the same time because this is gonna start a whole new future. And once we're settled in 2 weeks from now, I feel like I'll definitely warm up to the idea of wearing it, or I'm gonna take my thoughts and eat them and it's gonna be completely not what I want it to be. We'll just have to see once it comes in. Looking back on this 10 years from now, of course, we're gonna be like, oh yeah, VR, AR headsets are everywhere and it's just a commonplace thing. So that's some of my thoughts coming out of the pre-order process and being 2 weeks ahead of launch. It feels so crazy. I feel like Apple just announced this and now it's already here, but we'll see once we get it in how it actually is. What are your thoughts on the Apple Vision Pro, and what do you think it's gonna do for how we actually interact with computers on the daily now that you're gonna have one strapped to your face? Comment down below your thoughts on the Apple Vision Pro and where we are and what you think it's going to be. This is Travis, and have a good night.